I want her to reach out to me and let me see my grandkids and let me have a little peace.
It's kind of ridiculous. Meghan is completely inauthentic.
This is a strategic disaster. Harry, you can't preach about how you're giving your children space out of the public eye while your wife has just posted another picture of them.
I mean, it's great. Everyone hopes that their children would like to be charitable and philanthropic, but what if they don't want to be? What if they want to do something else?
Thomas Markle is now 80 years old, sitting alone in Mexico, and he found out about his own grandson's birthday the exact same way strangers online did, through Instagram. Think about that for a second. Random people scrolling on their phones get the same access to Archie's life as his grandfather. That doesn't feel like family anymore. It feels planned, polished, and controlled for the public eye. Archie just turned 7, and during all those years, there hasn't been one returned phone call, one answered letter, one invite to California.
Photoshopped to sell a candle named after them, while also revealing a full-on face shot of the child as a baby. So you can't preach when you're doing the exact thing you claim to be so bad.
Or even a simple family visit. Nothing at all. Just carefully selected photos posted online, while Thomas watches everything from far away like everybody else. For years, he kept speaking up about it, and people instantly labeled him bitter, unreliable, and self-serving. The media pushed that narrative hard, making sure his side barely got any sympathy. Then, Archie's 7th birthday came around, and suddenly, the situation looked exactly like Thomas had described for years. 2 photos were posted. One showed newborn Archie sleeping on Harry's chest, a super private family moment shared with millions online.
Here's the deal. I am not mad at any photoshopping because, as we've seen already, Meghan is completely inauthentic. Her only authenticity is in her inauthenticity, if you will.
The second photo showed both children from behind, standing in shallow water with their faces hidden while huge mountains filled the background dramatically. The caption said, "Happy birthday to our sweet boy. Simple, warm, personal, at least on the surface." But it didn't take long before people online started spotting details that looked strange. The biggest thing everyone noticed was Harry's hair. In the newborn photo, his hairline looked way fuller than it had in years.
These pictures, which all appear to be artificially altered in some ways, this is just what we expect from you.
Especially compared to real photos taken around the time Archie was born. Side-by-side comparisons spread fast online, and more people started believing the image had been digitally edited to make Harry look different. Then, more questions popped up. Some commenters pointed out that Lilibet's arm looked unusual in one picture, while others claimed the children's coloring didn't fully match earlier family photos released before. Suddenly, the internet was tearing apart every little detail.
Meghan lived with me from the 6th grade to high school, and I never saw anything like that with her. And well, also college, we get along fine then too as well. I never saw that.
And people quickly compared it to the chaos around Princess Catherine's edited Mother's Day photo. Back then, the media went completely overboard, non-stop headlines, demands for the original image, and endless theories about what was supposedly being hidden. Meanwhile, Catherine was quietly dealing with a serious illness she hadn't even shared publicly yet, and the pressure around one edited photo turned into a brutal media storm. The reaction to Archie's birthday photos was completely different. Instead of tough questions, major outlets flooded the internet with glowing stories about Meghan being a loving and devoted mother. Nobody demanded the original images. Nobody seriously questioned why Harry suddenly appeared to have way more hair in that photo than he actually had at that time. The contrast was impossible to miss. The double standard felt huge, and people online noticed it fast. Thomas Markle has never made dark claims about the children themselves. What he's said repeatedly, in interviews over the years,
Let's start with Harry's hair, shall we? First of all, we all know that the reason why the royals can't go on Rogaine and other stuff is, they're worried about children and all that stuff, but they're past childbearing years. I don't understand. There's no shame in that game to go to Turkey and do what, I don't know, everyone else has done and get some hair put in.
Is that his daughter carefully controls her public image and presents life in a very managed way. He's talked about the distance in their relationship and how media narratives are shaped around her. And when a birthday photo appears to be digitally enhanced, while the family also promotes itself as more real and authentic than royal tradition, people naturally start asking questions. That gap between image and reality starts speaking for itself without anybody needing to spell it out. Now put the photos to the side for a moment. What happened on the business side around Archie's birthday might have been even more revealing.
Kris Jenner hadn't liked any Meghan Markle social media pictures since last year. And then we get this less than a week later. This is no coincidence, and another example of how Meghan obsesses over her media coverage and claps back as much as possible.
Right before the birthday post went live, Meghan's lifestyle brand dropped a special Mother's Day collection. And right in the middle of it were 2 candles tied directly to the kids' birthdays. One was Signature Candle 506, linked to Archie's May 6th birthday. The other was Signature Candle 604, connected to Lilibet's June 4th birthday. Both candles were selling for $64 each. At the same time, the birthday photos were hitting millions of followers online. Marketing emails were also being sent out pushing fans to shop the collection. Then, people noticed something else. One of the first accounts, interacting with the birthday post.
If that's the look you're going for, just take a nice trip to Istanbul, come back with a full head of hair, and people will keep it moving. Instead, your wife wants to fluff it up a bit.
Was the brand's own business page. That instantly got attention online. Think about how calculated that looked. A child's birthday suddenly became part of a full marketing rollout connected to products named after the children's birth dates. Journalist Tom Sykes summed it up by saying, "The birthday post was not a birthday post. It was content designed to drive traffic and commerce." And that's where critics started feeling uncomfortable.
Acknowledge the reality of the fact that there's some really evil, wicked people at the heart of this who want to farm our children's mindset and market it for themselves. There is no free will on social media as it stands.
Because stepping away from royal life was supposed to protect their children from this exact kind of spotlight and public branding. Harry has spoken many times about how painful it felt, growing up treated like a public commodity. He's said clearly that he never wanted that same life for his children. Over the years, he's given speeches and joined events focused on the dangers social media can create for kids. He warned parents to be careful posting children online, especially with AI and unregulated platforms making it impossible to control where images end up.
She is very clever. Her problem is she's not clever enough. She lacks self-awareness. She doesn't realize she's too clever. That is a terrible dilemma to be in, that not recognizing your own limitations.
That message became a huge part of Harry's public image, a father trying to protect his kids from the pressures he experienced growing up in the spotlight. But despite all those warnings, the birthday content and brand promotion still rolled out at full speed. Meanwhile, Thomas Markle revealed something else surprising. He said lawyers had offered to represent him for free so he could fight for grandparent visitation rights in court. But Thomas said no every single time. His reason was simple. He didn't want the children dragged into a legal battle or turned into pieces in a family war. He said he would wait until they were older and ready, and he stuck to that decision for 7 years. Now Archie is 7 years old. Candles connected to his birth date were being sold online for $64, and Harry was still publicly presenting himself as a thoughtful, modern parent. But according to critics, the most strategic move wasn't even the candles.
The kind of woman she turned into. I'm shocked to this date to tell you that, because she's not the person I knew as my daughter.
It was what Harry reportedly chose to share with the press on the exact day of Archie's birthday. a story suddenly appeared in a major American celebrity magazine, the same outlet that has openly admitted to receiving information connected to the Sussex team in the past. The article was presented like a sweet, flattering look at Harry as a loving father. But once people read between the lines, many felt it was really aimed at King Charles. The piece talked about Harry wanting his children to grow up with freedom and privacy, connecting that directly to his own experience growing up under constant public attention. Then it quoted Harry saying, his children were his upgrade, adding that parenting changes over time and that there was no judgment or blame. But critics immediately pointed out the contradiction. Even while saying there was no blame, the entire structure of the article seemed to compare Harry's parenting to Charles's in a negative way.
And people turn around to me, these parents turn around and say, surely we can learn from the mistakes of the past. I said, mistakes to who? Because to the social media companies, it wasn't mistakes.
The message people took from it was simple. Harry was being presented as the better father. And the timing made it stand out even more, because Archie's 7th birthday became the moment chosen to push that narrative publicly. This all happened during the same week King Charles had just come back from a very successful visit to the United States. The trip was seen as a win across the board. He received warm reactions, positive headlines, and strong public support. Then, right in the middle of that good press, a magazine story appeared presenting Harry as the father who supposedly learned from Charles's mistakes. A lot of people saw the timing as impossible to ignore. The article pushed the idea that Harry's parenting style was shaped by what he lacked growing up, which critics felt painted Charles as the failed parent in the background of the story.
Harry and Meghan have nothing to do with fair play. In the very beginning, when they first arrived, they had kind of asked fair play, like, hey, we might be interested with Archwell and whatnot. And guess what happened? They never followed up. And in fact, people at Fair Play kind of realized what they wanted was money to go through Archwell to go to Fair Play. They gave absolutely no support.
Thomas Markle later made a comparison that surprised many people. He said he and King Charles actually share the same painful situation. Both are grandfathers to Archie and Lilibet, yet both are largely separated from the children's lives. Every time Thomas sees Charles on television, he says he's reminded that neither of them truly gets to know their grandchildren. It's a striking image when you think about it. One grandfather living in a palace, the other in Mexico, but both learning family updates through screens and headlines instead of real family moments. And while that was happening, Charles was also dealing with serious health issues and public pressure, while reports continued saying he hoped for reconciliation and more connection with his grandchildren. At the same time, fairness matters here. Thomas Markle has admitted to mistakes of his own. He acknowledged staging paparazzi photos before the royal wedding and has said he regrets how some things were handled. He's also given many interviews over the years, which critics believe damaged trust even further. That history has made it easy for some people to dismiss everything he says without fully considering whether parts of his concerns might still be valid. Thomas Markle has spent years saying Archie and Lilibet were being treated like pawns in a much bigger public image game. At the time, many people ignored him or mocked him for saying it. But looking back now, some critics believe his comments hit closer to the truth than people wanted to admit. He argued that the children were being separated from the larger family, cousins, grandparents, relatives, and the kind of family connection that helps kids understand where they come from. Thomas said he worried about what Archie and Lilibet might think one day when they grow older and start questioning the choices made around their childhood before they ever had a voice in it. In one interview, he even said he feared the children could eventually feel they had been used for public image purposes.
But at the same time, they like to take all the credit. Meghan is all about supporting Meghan. She claims that she has supported women for years, and now it's finally time to stand up for herself. Show me the women that you've supported, girlfriend.
At the time, most major media outlets brushed him off as bitter or desperate for attention. But then came the birthday rollout, candles tied to Archie's birth date, commercial emails sent out alongside birthday posts, and heavily discussed photos that critics claimed looked edited. At the same time, Harry was giving interviews and magazine stories that many people felt indirectly criticized King Charles as a parent. That combination only added more fuel to the public conversation. When Thomas used the word pawns, he wasn't speaking casually. He believed relationships were sometimes being managed around public strategy and media presentation. He says he experienced that personally in his own relationship with Meghan, and later feared the same pattern could affect the children too. And one word Thomas kept returning to was cruel. Not dramatic or explosive, just quietly cruel. An older man living far away, never having met grandchildren connected to him by blood.
When turning Archwell Foundation into Archwell Philanthropies, they said it was for a family thing so that their children could be involved. And around that time, they got the Prince and Princess titles.
Only seeing pieces of their lives through carefully selected social media posts and public headlines. That word, cruel, often gets drowned out by the nonstop drama around Harry and Meghan. But for many people, it's the part that sticks the most. When you step back and look beyond Archie's birthday itself, a much bigger pattern starts to appear, and it's one Thomas Markle and other critics have talked about for years. Around the same time as the birthday post, a well-connected British journalist released a detailed report claiming some of Meghan's high-profile American supporters were quietly starting to distance themselves behind the scenes. These were celebrities and public figures who had once appeared closely tied to her brand and image. The story picked up serious attention fast. Then, only days later, one of those same public figures suddenly posted glowing praise online for Meghan's Mother's Day candles.
Brooklyn Beckham was supposedly seeking counsel from these two, right?
Yeah.
And Harry and Meghan were like, we understand what it's like to be traumatized by your family. But Brooklyn had come out and said, I was monetized from day one.
The endorsement appeared naturally mixed into a stream of promotional content, but critics immediately questioned the timing because it landed right as rumors about fading alliances were spreading. That's why some commentators believe every move is carefully managed. Bad press appears, and then suddenly a counter message arrives almost instantly. A story says celebrity support is slipping, and public loyalty suddenly gets displayed online. King Charles receives positive headlines during his US trip, and then a magazine piece appears, pushing the image of Harry as the more evolved father. Critics argue the timing never feels random. And once again, Archie and Lilibet end up becoming part of the public conversation through products, birthday content, and branding tied directly to their identities. That doesn't mean their parents don't love them. Even critics usually admit that's not the point. The concern being raised is different. People feel the line between private family celebration and public promotion has become increasingly blurred. Author Tom Bauer, who has written extensively about royal family dynamics, made comments that added even more debate to the situation. He described Meghan as someone highly focused on winning public battles and suggested that relationships sometimes become damaged along the way.
And it's just very much going in the vein of doing exactly what happened to Harry for monetization for Meghan. Harry's not quite smart enough to put two and two together.
He pointed to fallout involving her father, old friends, past relationships, and tensions within the royal family itself. Then, he raised a question that sparked major discussion online. When does Harry become the next one? But there are two people missing from those debates entirely: Archie and Lilibet. Archie is now 7, Lilibet still very young, and neither child has any say in the public narratives, media coverage, or branding conversations happening around them. These are children who had candles named after their birth dates and sold publicly before they're even old enough to understand what branding or marketing really means. And meanwhile, one grandfather, Thomas Markle in Mexico, not the grandfather in the palace, has spent 7 years waiting for a phone call that never came. 7 years. That's 7 birthdays watching from a distance through carefully selected social media posts instead of real family moments. Thomas has repeatedly said he would stay patient and wait for the children to grow older, And according to him, that's exactly what he's done. But every birthday that passes without contact only keeps the conversation alive about the difference between Harry and Meghan's public image and the reality critics believe they see behind it. And for many observers, that gap feels impossible to ignore now. Critics argue this isn't just about normal family disagreements or messy relationships. They say the same pattern keeps appearing again and again over the years. A polished public image on one side, and then actions that seem to tell a very different story underneath.
I've always been here for her. I still love her. I love her forever. I never changed that feeling. But
Harry and Meghan built much of their public reputation around being authentic, real, and different from traditional royal systems. They said they wanted freedom from an institution that made people perform for cameras instead of living honestly. A huge part of their message focused on protecting their children from becoming public products or symbols. That's why the birthday situation created so much debate online. Critics pointed to the edited-looking photos, the birthday-linked candles being sold, the magazine stories, and the heavy media rollout happening all at once. And through all of it, Thomas Markle remained on the outside, watching through headlines and screens just like everybody else. The reason the authenticity conversation matters so much is because it worked incredibly well for years. When Harry and Meghan gave major interviews sharing their experiences, many people connected with them emotionally. Even when some claims later faced disputes or clarifications, supporters still believed them because they came across as sincere, emotional, and relatable. That public image became one of their biggest strengths. And also, the reason critics now focus so heavily on every moment where the message and the actions seem out of sync. Harry and Meghan's interviews connected with so many people because they felt emotional and personal. Viewers believed they were hearing something raw, painful, and completely genuine. And in public life, emotion can sometimes influence people even more strongly than hard facts. But critics argue there's a difference between authenticity and the performance of authenticity. When a couple builds their entire image around honesty and openness, every contradiction suddenly stands out much louder. That's why the edited-looking photos, the coordinated birthday marketing,
And, he was really upset that his parents basically owned his name, all this stuff. Well, guess what? Meghan and Harry own their kids' names. They own the domain names, they own the emails, they own everything else.
and the friendly magazine coverage all sparked so much attention online. To some people, the word authentic started sounding less like reality and more like branding. Thomas Markle claimed years ago that this gap between public image and private reality had existed for a long time. He said he watched it grow over the years, long before the world started debating it publicly. At the time, most people dismissed him completely. He was portrayed as an embarrassing father who damaged his daughter's big moment and later lashed out publicly after being pushed away. And to be fair, Thomas himself has admitted making mistakes. The staged paparazzi photos before the royal wedding caused major damage and created huge trust issues. Even he has acknowledged that. But critics now argue that being flawed doesn't automatically mean everything he said was false. For many observers, Archie's 7th birthday simply became another example in a much bigger pattern. When people looked at the full picture together, they saw edited family photos presented as natural memories, products tied directly to a child's birth date, media stories comparing parenting styles, and celebrity endorsements appearing right when negative coverage started spreading. And all of that unfolded around the birthday of a 7-year-old child. That's the part many critics keep coming back to. Because Harry and Meghan originally said they stepped away from royal life to shield their children from commercial pressure and public exploitation. So now people are asking a difficult question. Does this really look like protection from public life, or just a different version of it? Harry has spent years speaking at events and interviews about protecting children from social media, public pressure, and online exposure. He warned about kids becoming public property and argued that families should be extremely careful about what gets shared online. But critics now question whether those speeches truly reflected a mission, or whether they became part of the public image strategy itself. That's why the birthday rollout caused such a strong reaction. People connected the edited-looking photos, the candle promotions, and the magazine coverage into one larger media campaign instead of separate moments. And this is where Thomas Markle's perspective becomes important to some observers. Not because people see him as perfect or unbiased, but because he knew Meghan long before the global fame and royal headlines. He raised her, supported her financially during earlier stages of her career, and by his own account wanted nothing more than to be part of her wedding and family life. Instead, he ended up completely removed from that world. Critics argue it didn't happen slowly or naturally. They believe it happened very deliberately. Over time, Thomas became publicly associated with embarrassment, mistakes, and controversy, making it easier for many people to dismiss him entirely. Thomas has claimed for years that public narratives around Harry and Meghan often divide people into clear roles, supporters on one side and villains on the other. And critics say the villain label frequently lands on people who can't fully defend themselves without risking bigger family conflict. King Charles, for example, cannot strongly respond to stories criticizing his parenting without creating even more public drama around family relationships. Thomas Markle has also refused to take legal action because he believes dragging children into court battles would be wrong. Meanwhile, the palace itself usually avoids aggressive public responses because reacting too strongly only creates more headlines and attention. That leaves many of the people around Harry and Meghan in a difficult position, limited by family ties, public responsibilities, or concern for the children caught in the middle of the ongoing media storm. In situations where strong responses are difficult and silence gets interpreted as guilt, public narratives can grow almost unchecked. That's why Tom Bower's question about Harry keeps coming back into the conversation. Over the last few years, many people feel everything has been building toward that exact question. Harry has sacrificed a huge amount. He stepped away from the royal institution he was born into, lost closeness with his father and brother, left behind the country where he grew up, and gave up the normal family connections most people never even think about losing. All of it happened in support of a shared future, a shared image, and a shared business direction with Meghan. But critics argue the results haven't matched the scale of those sacrifices. The Netflix projects received mixed reactions. The memoir created massive controversy and family tension. And several media deals failed to create the long-term influence many expected. Reports have also suggested that some celebrity relationships in Hollywood may not be as strong as they once appeared. That's why the coverage around Archie's birthday stood out so much to critics. They argue it didn't just look strategic, it looked reactive. When public momentum is strong, media campaigns appear polished and controlled. But when pressure builds, people say the strategy becomes easier to spot. And according to critics, the one thing always available for attention is the children, their birthdays, photos, milestones, and public image. Their birth dates become product names, their photos become headlines, and their family moments become part of larger branding conversations online. To be clear, there's no public evidence suggesting Archie or Lilibet are unloved or unsafe. By all appearances, they are cared for and living privileged lives. But the criticism focuses on something else entirely: the growing overlap between private family life and public commercial branding. And many people believe that once the line between beloved child and brand asset becomes too blurred, it can slowly change the way childhood itself gets presented to the world. Thomas Markle is sitting in Mexico at nearly 81 years old, still waiting for a phone call that never came. 7 years have passed without hearing his grandson's voice or meeting him in person. And long before most people were questioning any of this publicly, Thomas was already warning about it. At the time, many dismissed him completely. Then Archie's 7th birthday arrived, and suddenly all the debates exploded again. The birthday candles linked to the children's birth dates, the heavily discussed photos, the magazine stories, the celebrity endorsements appearing right on schedule. Critics felt it all looked too coordinated to ignore. Thomas had warned years earlier that Archie and Lilibet risked becoming part of a larger public image machine. He said it as concern, not as an attack, He hoped boundaries would eventually be recognized before family moments became tied too closely to branding and media strategy. But now, 7 birthdays later, critics argue that line may have been crossed so many times, it barely even registers anymore. Meanwhile, Thomas remains thousands of miles away, learning about his grandson the same way strangers online do, through screens, headlines, and social media posts. He sees the photos. He notices the timing. He watches the products launch and the articles spread online. And according to supporters of his view, he doesn't need to add much anymore because they believe he already said everything years ago. Now imagine Archie one day growing up and searching through all of this himself. Imagine him finding the birthday campaigns, the product launches tied to his name, the media stories, and the public family arguments that surrounded moments from his childhood before he was old enough to understand any of it. And then comes the bigger question critics keep asking. When that day comes, how will he feel about it all? And will he eventually believe that Thomas Markle, the grandfather across the ocean who refused legal battles because he didn't want children pulled into conflict, had been telling the truth from the beginning? The bigger question surrounding Archie and Lilibet isn't going away anytime soon. As they grow older, people believe tougher questions will naturally follow about how their childhoods were presented publicly, whose interests were being protected, and what role media and branding played in shaping their image. Kids eventually become adults with their own opinions, their own memories, and their own ability to search through the public record. And in this case, that record is massive, detailed, and permanently online. For 7 years, Thomas Markle has continued putting his views on record. He stayed consistent about one thing in particular: his belief that the children's lives have been closely tied to public image strategy and media narratives. Critics now argue that events surrounding Archie's birthday only added more attention to those concerns, and one day, the children themselves will be able to read every part of it. The bigger questions around Archie and Lilibet aren't disappearing anytime soon. As they get older, many believe the conversation will only grow louder. Questions about how their childhoods were presented publicly, who benefited from those moments, and how much of it was tied to image, branding, and media strategy. Children grow up. They become adults with their own opinions, their own memories, and eventually their own questions. And when that day comes, every interview, every headline, every birthday post, and every public debate will still be sitting online, waiting to be seen. For 7 years, Thomas Markle has kept repeating the same concerns. Whether people agree with him or not, critics say the events surrounding Archie's birthday brought those warnings back into focus once again. One day, Archie and Lilibet may read all of it for themselves and decide what they believe is true. Share this with someone you think needs to hear it. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think Thomas Markle has been telling the truth? Do you think Archie will one day go looking for answers? We read every single comment, and your perspective genuinely matters here. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.